All right, everyone, buckle up, because today we're diving deep into the world of Chapter 13 bankruptcy.
Chapter 13.
It might not sound like the most thrilling topic, but trust me, this stuff is packed with twists and turns.
Absolutely.
We're cracking open a chapter from The Complete Book on Bankruptcy by Peter Francis Jury C.
Of Jury law.
Right, of Jury C. Law. And whether you're dealing with debt yourself or just curious about this side of the financial world, this deep dive is for you.
It is.
Oh, and before we get started, just a quick reminder that this is all for informational purposes only. It's not legal advice, attorney advertising. Past results do not guarantee similar outcomes. Listening to this does not create an attorney-client relationship with Jurisy Law or any of its attorneys. The information discussed is general in nature and may not apply to your specific legal situation. For personalized advice regarding your financial circumstances or potential bankruptcy options, we encourage you to consult directly with a qualified attorney. Jurisy Law provides free consultations to help you make informed decisions. Contact us today to learn more. Okay, so Chapter 13 is often called a debt repayment plan. What sets it apart from other ways to deal with, serious debt?
Well, with Chapter 13, you're basically setting up a structured way to repay your debts over time.
Okay.
And a big difference from Chapter 7 bankruptcy is that you can actually keep valuable assets.
Oh, I see.
Things like your home or your car.
Even if you're behind on payments.
Exactly.
So it's not about wiping out all your debt completely.
Not necessarily, no.
It's more about finding a way to catch up and keep what you've worked for.
Yeah, you could think of it as a financial reset button.
Interesting.
You work with the court to create a plan you can manage, and a court-appointed trustee oversees the whole process.
A trustee.
Yep.
Okay, so there's like a third party involved.
Exactly.
To keep everything fair and square. So what does a typical Chapter 13 repayment plan look like?
Well, one big advantage is that you combine all your debts into one monthly payment.
Oh, so instead of juggling a million different bills,
Right.
you just have one to worry about.
Exactly. And these plans usually last 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
Giving you a clear timeline to become debt-free. And, get this, in most cases, interest on unsecured debts.
Unsecured debts meaning.
Things like credit card bills or medical expenses.
Okay.
That interest actually stops adding up while you're under the Chapter 13 plan.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
So you're actually chipping away at the principal faster.
Much faster. It's a game changer.
So you're not just like stuck treading water.
Exactly. You're actually making progress.
Okay, this is making a lot of sense. Now, if someone's thinking, maybe Chapter 13 is for me, how do they figure out what those monthly payments would be?
Well, it's a pretty simple calculation. You add up all your debts, then divide by the number of months in your plan.
Right, which is?
36 to 60 months.
Gotcha.
And then you tack on about 10% for administrative fees.
So like if someone had, say, $30,000 in debt and went with a 5-year plan, their payment would be around?
About $550 a month.
Okay, not bad.
But that's just a ballpark figure. The actual payment depends on a few things, like what kind of debts you have.
Right, because you mentioned priority debts earlier. What are those exactly?
Ah, good question. Priority debts are the ones you have to pay in full, no matter what.
Like?
Things like taxes and child support.
Oh, right. Makes sense.
Those take priority over other unsecured debts.
Okay, so even with a repayment plan, you still got to take care of those obligations first.
Exactly.
So we've covered the basics, but when is Chapter 13 really the best move?
Well, it's not for everyone, that's for sure.
Right.
But there are a few situations where it really shines.
Like what?
First, if you're in danger of losing your home or your car, Chapter 13 can help you catch up on those payments and keep those assets.
Okay, so like the Peterson family in the book.
Exactly. They were facing foreclosure, but Chapter 13 gave them a way to save their home.
Wow.
Second, if you make too much money to qualify for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, Chapter 13 might be the better option.
So it's for folks who have a decent income but are still drowning in debt.
Exactly.
Got it. What else?
Well, if you're just swamped with unsecured debts like credit card bills, Chapter 13 can give you some breathing room to repay them over time.
Without those pesky collectors hounding you.
Exactly.
And finally,
Finally, it can help you handle priority debts like back taxes or child support.
even though you can't totally erase them.
Right. Chapter 13 helps you manage those payments responsibly.
Okay, I'm seeing how Chapter 13 can be a lifesaver in certain situations.
It definitely can be.
But let's be real, it can't erase every single debt under the sun, right?
You're right. There are some debts that even Chapter 13 can't touch. Student loans are the big one. Those are usually non-dischargeable unless you're moving with some extreme hardship.
Okay,
And recent income taxes are another one. You usually can't discharge those either.
gotcha. So paying your taxes is still important no matter what.
Absolutely.
What else?
Well, any debts from criminal activity are off the table.
Oh, right.
Things like fines or restitution.
Makes sense.
And then there are things like trust fund taxes and debts from intentional harm. Those are no-goes as well.
Okay, so even with Chapter 13, there are some hard limits.
There are. It's important to understand both the good and the bad.
So we've got Chapter 13 and that Chapter 7. It's like the battle of the bankruptcy titans. Which one wins?
Well, it really depends on your individual situation.
Of course.
Chapter 7 is usually better if you don't have a lot of extra income and need to get rid of unsecured debt fast.
Okay, so it's a quick solution.
But you might have to give up some of your stuff. Chapter 13, on the other hand, helps you keep your assets and work out a plan to repay over time.
So it's a longer commitment.
But it could be less disruptive in the long run.
Okay, it's all about weighing your options. Now, filing for bankruptcy definitely affects your credit, right?
It does.
Both Chapter 7 and Chapter 13.
Yeah, both will stay on your credit report for 10 years.
But which one's worse?
Well, Chapter 7 might actually help you rebuild your credit faster in the long run.
Huh, interesting. Sometimes real-life examples make things so much clearer. And I love that the book tells the story of the Petersons.
Oh, yeah.
They were about to lose their home because of a financial setback.
It was tough. They fell behind on their mortgage, and their lender wouldn't budge.
It's scary to think about.
It is, but then they filed for Chapter 13, and it changed everything.
Really?
It gave them the time they needed to catch up on their mortgage and save their home.
Wow, talk about a happy ending.
Right.
It just shows how powerful Chapter 13 can be.
It really does.
And speaking of power, let's talk about the brains behind this awesome book, Jury C Law.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Founded by Peter Francis Jury C.
Over 40 years of experience helping people navigate bankruptcy.
Wow. And they've helped over 900,000 people.
It's incredible.
Their client reviews are amazing.
Over 50,000 five-star reviews.
They really focus on making bankruptcy as stress-free as possible.
They do, and they offer free consultations to help people figure out their best options.
That's so important.
It is. Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. Well, this has been a crash course in Chapter 13, and I'm sure our listeners are buzzing with questions.
I bet they are.
We'll be back to answer those and dig even deeper into Chapter 13 in the next part of this episode.
See you then.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Chapter 13 bankruptcy. I'm glad you're with us for part 2.
Me too. There's a lot to cover, and I think this information can really help anyone who's dealing with debt.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to finances.
Right. And just to be clear, we're not giving legal advice here.
Nope.
Just sharing some insight. So if you're facing real challenges, talk to a qualified attorney.
Definitely. Okay, last time we were comparing Chapter 13 to Chapter 7.
Right. Chapter 7 is more like a clean slate, wiping out unsecured debts.
While Chapter 13 focuses on creating a repayment plan to help you keep your assets.
And we talked about how both can stay on your credit report for a while.
For up to 10 years, yeah.
But we didn't really get into how they affect your credit score, which I know a lot of people worry about.
It's a big concern. There's this idea that bankruptcy just destroys your credit.
Like game over.
Right. But for many people, their credit score actually improves after bankruptcy.
Wait, really? How does that work?
Well, think about it. If you're already struggling with debt, your credit score's probably taken a hit.
Oh, that's true.
By filing for bankruptcy, you're addressing the root of the problem.
So it's like taking that first step to fix something that's broken, even though it might hurt at first.
Perfect analogy. Once you're on a repayment plan or have discharged your debts, your debt-to-income ratio gets better.
Which is a big deal for your creditworthiness.
Huge, and that can open doors to better credit opportunities down the road.
Wow, that's actually really good to know. It's not all doom and gloom.
Not at all.
Okay, so we've covered the basics, the good and the bad, and even busted some myths about credit scores. Let's get back to the nitty-gritty of Chapter 13, those repayment plans.
All right, let's do it. As we said before, these plans usually last 3 to 5 years.
Right.
And you make one payment each month to a court-appointed trustee.
And they distribute the money to your creditors.
Exactly. They act as a neutral party, making sure everyone gets paid fairly.
Like a financial referee.
I like that. Now, something that often surprises people is that most unsecured debts...
Like credit cards and medical bills.
Yep. That interest stops piling up while you're in a Chapter 13 plan.
Right, we talked about that. It's such a relief because you can actually start making progress.
It's huge.
Okay, so let's say someone's thinking, all right, Chapter 13 might be the way to go. What are the steps to actually create one of these plans?
First things first, you need to find a good bankruptcy attorney.
Okay, so finding the right lawyer is step 1.
Absolutely. They'll walk you through the whole process and make sure everything's done right.
Okay, what's next?
You'll need to gather all your financial information.
Like what you own, what you owe.
Exactly. Assets, debts, income, expenses, the whole 9 yards.
Full transparency.
Yep. Your attorney uses that info to create a plan that shows how you'll repay your debts over time.
So you work together on this.
It's a team effort. You want a plan that works for your budget and is also acceptable to the court.
Makes sense. So it's not just about throwing random numbers around.
Not at all. It has to be realistic and well-structured. Your attorney will also handle all the paperwork and represent you in court.
So they take care of all the legal stuff.
That's the idea. They're your advocate throughout the process. Now, once the plan's submitted to the court, there's a hearing where a judge reviews it.
Okay.
And your creditors can speak up if they have any concerns.
So it's not a done deal as soon as you file.
Nope. The judge needs to make sure everything's fair and legal.
What happens if a creditor objects?
Your attorney will try to work things out with them.
So maybe adjust the payment terms or provide more info?
Exactly. The goal is to find a solution that everyone can agree on.
Compromise is key. Okay, let's say the judge approves the plan. What happens then?
Then you start making those monthly payments to the trustee.
And they take it from there.
Yep, they distribute the funds to your creditors according to the plan. You're also protected from creditor harassment and lawsuits.
That must be a huge weight off your shoulders.
It is. It gives you the space to rebuild your finances. So you're making your payments, sticking to the plan. What happens at the end of those 35 years?
Yeah, what does the finish line look like?
Well, if you've done everything right, any remaining unsecured debts in the plan are discharged.
Discharged, meaning...
You don't have to pay them anymore. It's like a clean slate.
Wow, a fresh start.
Exactly. You've met your obligations, and you can move forward with a lighter financial burden.
Plus, you've learned some valuable money management skills along the way.
Absolutely. It's an investment in your future.
This is amazing. I'm starting to see why Chapter 13 can be such a game changer for people who are struggling.
It can be, but remember, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right?
It's important to think carefully about whether it's right for you, and definitely get expert advice.
Speaking of experts, I keep thinking about Jurisy Law. They seem to really care about their clients.
They do. They're all about making bankruptcy as easy and stress-free as possible.
Plus, they offer free consultations.
Which is huge. It gives people a chance to explore their options without any pressure.
Well, I'm feeling a lot more informed about Chapter 13 now.
Me too.
But I'm sure our listeners have even more questions,
Probably.
and we'll tackle those in the final part of this episode.
See you then.
So with us. And we're back for the final round of our Chapter 13 Deep Dive.
Round 3.
It's been a wild ride, but I feel like we've really cracked the code on this whole Chapter 13 thing.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have, and in this last part, we want to hit some of the most common questions people have, clear up any confusion, so our listeners can feel confident about making smart financial decisions.
Absolutely.
But first, the usual reminder, this is just for informational purposes.
Right.
Not legal advice, attorney advertising. Past results do not guarantee similar outcomes. Listening to this does not create an attorney-client relationship with Jurisy Law or any of its attorneys. The information discussed is general in nature and may not apply to your specific legal situation. For personalized advice regarding your financial circumstances or potential bankruptcy options, we encourage you to consult directly with a qualified attorney. Jurisy Law provides free consultations to help you make informed decisions. Contact them today to learn more. Okay, let's jump into those FAQs. What happens if someone's financial situation changes after they've filed for Chapter 13?
Oh, that's a good one.
Like they lose their job or get hit with some unexpected medical bills?
It happens. Life throws curveballs.
Is there any wiggle room in the plan?
Luckily, yes. Chapter 13 is pretty flexible.
Okay, good.
If your income drops or your expenses go up, you can ask the court to modify your repayment plan.
So it's not like you're stuck with whatever you agreed to at the beginning.
Right. It can be adjusted if things change.
That's a relief.
You'll need to show proof of the changes, of course, and the court has to okay it.
Makes sense.
But it's definitely an option.
Okay, next question. We keep hearing about Chapter 13 discharge. What does that actually mean?
That's the happy ending, right?
It's like the holy grail of bankruptcy.
You got it. Once you've finished all your payments, the court issues a discharge order.
And that means?
You're no longer legally obligated to pay the remaining unsecured debts from your plan.
Poof, they're gone.
Pretty much. It's a clean slate.
Wow.
But remember, there are some exceptions, like student loans and recent taxes.
Right, those are the tough ones.
But for most unsecured debts, a Chapter 13 discharge gives you a real chance to start over.
Okay, last question. What are some of the biggest mistakes people make when filing for Chapter 13?
That's a big one. I think the biggest mistake is trying to go it alone.
Without a lawyer.
Yeah. Bankruptcy law is tricky, and it's easy to mess things up if you don't know what you're doing.
So having an expert in your corner is crucial.
Absolutely. Another mistake is not being totally honest with your attorney about your finances.
Oh, right, like hiding assets or downplaying your income.
Yeah, that'll come back to bite you.
Honesty is the best policy.
Always. And lastly, some people don't take the repayment plan seriously once it's in place.
Meaning they miss payments or just ignore it altogether.
Yeah. Chapter 13 can be a lifesaver, but you have to put in the work.
Make those payments on time, communicate with your trustee.
Exactly. It's a partnership.
Okay, those are all really good points. And speaking of partnerships, I keep coming back to Jurisy Law.
They're great.
They seem to really go above and beyond for their clients.
I think it's their motto. Nice people doing nice things for nice people.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
And their founder, Peter Francis Juracy, has been doing this for over 40 years.
He's seen it all.
He has, and Juracy Law has helped a ton of people, over 900,000.
Incredible. And they offer free consultations, which is so important for people who are just starting to explore their options.
It's huge. It lets them get advice and figure out what's best for them without any pressure.
Well, I feel like we've covered a ton of ground today.
We have.
Chapter 13 could be a really complex topic, but hopefully we've shed some light on it.
Hope so.
Remember, if you're struggling with debt, you don't have to go through it alone.
There's help out there.
And Juracy Law is a great place to start.
Absolutely.
All right, Erza, that's a wrap on Chapter 13. And just a final reminder, this was for informational purposes only, not legal advice. Attorney advertising. Past results do not guarantee similar outcomes. Listening to this does not create an attorney-client relationship with Juracy Law or any of its attorneys. The information discussed is general in nature and may not apply to your specific legal situation. For personal advice regarding your financial circumstances or potential bankruptcy options, we encourage you to consult directly with a qualified attorney. Juracy Law provides free consultations to help you make informed decisions. Contact them today to learn more. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.